Uh, I should post this. Oh man, I gotta post this. 1 second. I gotta post.
I'll do it.
Can you post this? Can you embed this into the blog?
Yes, no problem.
Awesome. I can talk to people in the meantime. Yeah. So today we went to a place called Myakka State Park, and we went on one of those good old-fashioned airboats and saw dozens of alligators. It was really cool. It was I think I put on Instagram a picture of my son and an alligator.
Hopefully not too close.
It was the last picture we ever had. No, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. It was. Here, let me see if I can show you. It was not that bad, but it was incredible. It was one of those places that just amazed me, like completely amazed me, and been there forever. It's only 20 miles from Sarasota, so it was close by.
Well, as you know, Ak, in a previous life, I was a baseball writer.
Right.
And, when I covered baseball in my previous life, I covered the Detroit Tigers for a very short period of time, and I got to do one spring training in Lakeland, Florida. And I stayed at a hotel that had a lake/pond, and in said lake /pond there were alligators. And I discovered that I feel the same way about alligators that I feel about snakes. In other words, I want nothing to do with them. And, I don't want to get anywhere near an alligator. They look pretty frightening. They look pretty frightening. When I see on television where they play those courses where there are alligators, I think to myself, why on God's earth would you play a golf course where a alligator might eat your golf ball or might go in where alligators live? I don't want to go there. I don't like them.
I am totally with you. I mean, they can jump the length of their body. I learned a lot about them today. They can jump the length of their body. The oldest one was 80 years old. It's pretty good for an alligator. And yeah, they can go, like, the longest were 19 feet long, although in prehistoric times they grew up to 60 feet.
Wow.
Can you imagine a 60-foot alligator?
Here's the thing. Even the 80-year-old alligator can kill you. So.
Oh yeah, they're killing machines. I mean, they're designed to kill.
He can kill you with his wheelchair or with his walker.
Yeah.
The thing is, they only kill at night. So during the day, you can, when we were watching these alligators, there would be birds, like those white, duck-billed birds, or egrets, or I always say no egrets, no remorse. Egrets were walking by, and they were just walking right next to the alligators. And the tour guide said, yeah, that bird would never get near that alligator at night. It knows during the day that alligator is just going to sit there lazily and wait. And then at night, the alligator would take that bird down so fast you wouldn't even. But during the day, they're completely docile.
Well, I'm sure the 80-year-old alligator feeds at 3:30 in the afternoon because that's
right. Yeah, that's happy hour.
yeah. So if I saw an 80-year-old alligator, I'd feel. At 6 o'clock, I'd feel okay because he would have eaten at 3 o'clock when you get to senior citizen specials.
Well, yeah, you could find the 80-year-old alligator because he'd have his mailing address from AARP.
Right.
Yeah.
80-year-old alligator.
I got a hockey question for you guys.
Really? All right.
Yeah.
It's a little off topic. Go ahead, Josh.
No,
Yeah.
Who is the hottest team right now in the NHL?
Columbus.
Yeah.
They are.
I guess it was dead given. 10 wins out of the last 11 games.
Yeah, they've 7 in a row.
Just ruining their draft choice.
Yeah.
Did you guys see Interstellar yet?
Yes.
I've seen it. Yeah.
I'm the only one who hasn't, but I was
Oh, it was
praying.
better than
Serious
Gravity.
issues. I mean, it was a good movie, but there are some seriously weird things about this movie that I just don't understand. And I'm not to be a spoiler or anything like that, but when he's trying to, first of all, Matthew McConaughey, I cannot feel anything for. I realize that as I'm watching every Matthew McConaughey movie I've ever seen, I can't feel anything for him. There's nothing. I don't mind him. I'll watch him as an actor. I think he's amusing and entertaining and pleasant enough to look at, but I can't feel a thing for this man. I can't relate to anything he's ever gone through in any movie. There's no thing about the movies he's done, and think about him. You just can't feel empathetic towards Matthew McConaughey in any way. There's nothing.
He plays characters that are, unsympathetic. So
That's true.
he seems to gravitate toward that. I just can't stand his Lincoln commercials. You know, you're paying him all that money, and that's what you came up with. You know, that's your, you know,
Right.
like he should be in a funny commercial. Like the Jim Carrey take on his commercials is better than the actual commercials. So,
No, much better. Much better.
yeah.
And all I have to say is I can definitely feel something for Jessica Chastain. So
Yeah, but I mean that's a different story, right? But this is Matthew McConaughey has absolutely, I don't know. There's something about him that just makes me, you know, when he's in trouble, I'm like, he's not.
You're the closest thing I know to a Bill Nye the Science Guy, so I will tell you that I did read a story that said the science on that, there was a lot of logic to
Yes.
how that worked out. Like they talked to guys who know such things who said the you can follow the line of reasoning, and that did make sense in that regard.
The funny thing is that he was in a movie that is strangely similar in terms of like time travel and space. If you remember Contact, the movie with Jodie Foster.
Right, again. And that's the most sympathetic character you could probably play.
Yeah, and he was great. He was great in that movie. It was a great movie, and he was really good in it.
But I don't understand in that movie why people trusted him. Like, I can't trust Matthew McConaughey. I can't. The only thing I don't distrust him, but it's just like he's the last. I mean, I don't know. It seems like the last person who could be a minister. Like, there's a lot of things about him that just were really. Didn't he feel like an evil minister throughout the movie? Even though he wasn't, he was very good. But you expect at any moment him to become an evil minister in that movie.
That movie, by the way, is on my list of underrated movies.
Oh yeah, no, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's a.
Is that Contact?
Contact.
Yeah, it's a movie that makes you think, and not enough people seem to know that what a terrific movie it is.
Yeah, and a absolutely phenomenal cast. I mean, James Woods, Tom.
Yeah. He's awesome. I mean, just not to we'll move on to hockey in a second, but just like I mean, Interstellar, the whole section where he's trying to relay messages by knocking books off the shelf and stuff like that whole thing.
Yeah.
It's just like that to me. I mean, of course, that that's not the most sciencey part of the whole thing, but there's other science that was absolutely. But it doesn't make any sense because a logical person watching that says, well, of course they're not going to succeed at this because you're doing it. I mean, if you weren't it's time travel. So if you were going to succeed at getting her not to go, you wouldn't be seen doing this. But that's the time travel, mind blown type thing. But that's
the one thing I don't get is Hollywood isn't very creative, because you see two movies come out around the same time that have kind of the same kind of feel to it. I remember Deep Impact, and there was another one, what was it, Dante's Peak, that came out right away?
I remember that one thing,
Deep Impact and the Armageddon with
yes.
Bruce Willis. No, please, how many Christopher Columbus movies were there at the same time? There were like 2 or 3. There was a Tom Selleck one, and there was a Gerard Depardieu one. They did Wyatt Earp, and they did Tombstone about at the same time. The movie companies were competing to get the movies out first, and the one that got out first was always considered better because it got out first.
Yeah, because Interstellar and Gravity, I mean, it's 2 different storylines, but I mean, they're both kind of about space, right? It just seems like there's always 2 movies that come out that are kind of alike around the same time, and it was Dante's Peak and something. There was another movie that came out.
Volcano
Yes.
with Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah. Like they come out the same time, and it's it's not the exact same story, but it's there's similarities between the 2, and it's like, really? It's like now they're bringing back these old TV shows, like, and I mentioned before, Hollywood's kind of losing ideas that they're bringing back old shows. Like, who's going to watch Coach? I'm not. Who cares?
Well, I mean, if Hollywood would actually do movies about subjects that people were interested in instead of talking about doing sequels, then maybe things would be more interesting. But let's talk.
Goonies 2. Goonies 2, I'm looking forward to.
Let's talk some hockey.
You should never made another Goonies. Come on, that's like a movie that's just so.
But they're bringing back the old guy. They're bringing back the whole cast.
Doesn't matter.
If sign off on it, they're going to bring back the whole cast.
Sounds like a bird of prey just swept by the movie. Swept by the. Sorry about that. There's a lot of Hawks here and bald eagles and osprey. And they're really frightening. And one was apparently a Shih Tzu was grabbed the other day by an eagle.
Hey.
Yeah, well, trust me, the alligator will grab those birds if they get so close.
Yeah, I know. It's a beautiful ecosystem.
You know, it all goes back to the alligator.
Well, the alligator is what they call a keystone animal. They said that it's like part of the ecosystem. If you take the alligator out, you're screwed, unless of course you're a deer.
Well, it sounds like it's a very Shih Tzu storm.
Thank you very much, Mike. Appreciate that. All right, let's begin the show on that note. All right, it's Thursday,
April 2nd.
I did not do my April Fool's story yesterday, and I had it all figured out and everything. And last year's April Fool's story was such a hit that I couldn't top it.
Well, let me bring something up after we do the introductions about April Fools.
All right, here we go. Ready?
Yes.
Hello, Hockey World. Welcome to sunny Florida. It's Thursday, April 2nd, 2015.
I'm Michael Lagello.
I'm Kevin Allen of USA Today Sports.
I'm Josh Rimmer.
And I am Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzcast from HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you Monday through Friday at 1 o'clock-ish. Sure, it's 3:30 now, but who's counting? We give you the news and then try to fill you in on the goings-on in the hockey world. And today we're doing a little bit later because I wanted to do one show this week while I was in Florida. I appreciate Mike's been doing a heck of a job there, and all the guys who've been carrying the torch this week. Just do a lot of family stuff. Tomorrow I'll be traveling again, so I won't be here tomorrow. But I did want to get at least one show in because we are having fun here. And yeah, we thought didn't do one on April Fools, but Mike got an April Fool's story because I wanted to tell my quick April Fool's because I was trying really hard to come up with an April Fool's story this year, and I didn't. I had one last year though, which really sent the hockey world into a tizzy, which was fun.
Well, a young writer that I know in Toronto started a little bit of and it's not a storm, but it was just a little bit of a controversy. One of the Leaf websites wrote a story, and it was posted on March 31st at about 10 o'clock. And as soon as I read the story, I knew it was an April Fool's joke. Now I know it's an April Fool's joke because, I'm very sensitive to April Fool's jokes, and I'm not going to say why. But anyway, the story was that Alex Radulov, who's in the KHL, was going to sign with the Maple Leafs after the KHL season was over with. I immediately picked up on it as it being an April Fool's joke. A Russian website picked up the rumor.
Really?
Russian website picked up the rumor, and it was reported. And then TSN reported they picking up an obvious April Fool's joke. So it sort of just like morphed from there. Not that TSN thought it was for real, but they picked up on the fact that the Russian website picked up on the rumor.
Wow. Well, this is tough. And this is in the day and age of, I'm sure Kevin, the USA Today has to deal with this all the time, with April Fool's jokes because.
Yeah, we actually always get an alert reminding everyone that it's April Fool's and that, you should be, especially now, like in the olden days, we did not, do much aggregate reporting, but now, we do pick up and do blogs on what other folks have to say. So, there's just a reminder that goes out that says, you got to be, careful about that. And, the issue now and the way that journalism is today, Mike just hit it on the head. He just did a report on a report of TSN reporting upon Russian newspaper picking up an April Fool's joke. That's the way journalism is today, where, you're about 5 or 6 layers removed from the actual starting point of the story. So you have to be careful of your mainstream news organization around April 1st because we see it every day when you have to introduce this story because I don't think most people, the majority of folks, pay attention to what date it is unless it's relevant to their lives.
Right.
And I think it's real easy to get caught up in that if you're not, especially with something like Radulov. Like, how is that different, for example, from Kovalchuk coming back? No, that story was legitimate.
Yeah,
now,
right.
What made it obvious was we were around April 1st. And, those of us who cover the sport know that, Radulov, has had no indication that he was going to come back. So, but you got to be careful around around this date, because if the closer that someone can make it to a legitimate story, the better it is. Obviously.
That's the whole key. Last year, I did a pretty good job, a pretty good one, I thought, because what I did was I had my April 1st joke was that the NHL was negotiating that the NFL was negotiating to buy the NHL and Major League Baseball, and I had this whole thing that it was going on, and that the idea was the NFL wanted to change all the mascots to be the same for each team in each city, so that the Flyers would now be the Philadelphia Eagles just hockey team, the Philadelphia Eagles baseball team, and the Philadelphia Eagles football team, and that the NFL would control the entire story. And it was funny because as I was doing this, I got a lot of people. I got a lot of people from the league and different people just immediately calling me up, and it was close enough to possible. And I said, the NFL, they have all this money, they can easily buy the other leagues. It's not that, and they and why not make one sport thing? That's what we have in college sports. We have like one college has. It's the Wolverines of Michigan is the baseball team, the basketball team, the football team. They're all the Wolverines. So this is the idea. The NFL wants to do this, but where I lost people was midway through, and I had to go figure out what I was going to do with the teams in like Montreal Canadiens that don't have an NFL team. And I said that in those cases hockey teams would be paired with other football teams, like the New Orleans Saints would be paired with the Montreal Canadiens, and that would be like they would become the Montreal Saints and that kind of thing. There would be things like that. But I actually it was amazing the amount of people, and as silly as that is, and I thought by that point I would just it would make people just there were so many people that freaked out about it that I was afraid to do one this year. Even one that was just kind of goofy. Like I had thought of doing a seniors league opening up in Florida because I was here. I thought an NHL Seniors League, where there would be older NHL players competing at a senior level. That was close enough to being possible reality. And I said, here in town, because I'm in the place where this is Longboat Key is where Scotty Bowman has a summer place. So I could say easily, I ran into Scotty Bowman, and who would, so I was, but I chose to go to the pool instead, I think. So. Anyway,
good decision.
They had a senior tour for older hockey players. Even though Ted Lindsay is almost 90, maybe he is 90, he would still dominate.
Right.
He is in remarkable condition for a man of his age. I think he's in his late 80s. But you still see him around Detroit, and he looks like he's 60. And he's in remarkable shape.
I still think the most remarkable thing this week was that Gordie Howe was his birthday was March 31st, and the report was that Gordie Howe was fishing. I mean, everybody thought that we were writing the obits for Gordie Howe a few months ago, and he was well enough to go out and fish.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that's just great.
No, that's amazing. Incredible story. Incredible recovery. So speaking of incredible stories, I wanted to talk a little bit about Alex Ovechkin because Kevin wrote a really good. I got a chance to read your story last night. I talked to Kevin yesterday on the phone, and this was a great story on Ovechkin. And really, Ovechkin has become. Obviously, the 50-goal scorer in a year where no one can score goals. This is like scoring 70 goals, in my opinion. This is 50 goals this year is unbelievable. Really, with the goalies where they are now. There's a really good. I wanted to show you this. I'm going to share this with you before I get into Kevin's story. Maybe you guys saw this or not. This is the goals scored, okay, versus individual shots. So if I can show you this. So this is goals scored on the bottom, right? And on the other column is individual shots. And there's all these players here. And as you go through it, you can see, people with the most goals scored and the most shots, like, will be in the upper right there. So that's Stahl, Ginla. You can see what's funny on here is the Dion Phaneuf bubble there, which is like the least amount of goals scored for the most amount of shots taken, sort of out in the middle of nowhere there. Where's Ovechkin on this list? Oh wait, he's up here. This is just like a staggering thing. Of all the players in the NHL, look where this is like everybody else is roughly in here. You have at the top here, you have Stahl, Ginla, Zetterberg, Nash. But Ovechkin is up here. That's just an unbelievable chart to me.
Yeah.
And now you got a chance to talk to Trotz about it. It was a good story. Why don't you tell some folks about it? Yeah, it was really interesting. I liked it.
Yeah, it really was. I was going to just write a column, with my own opinion about that. That he's never really gotten a fair shot in terms of the perception about who he is. And my point was simply going to be that we should be celebrating this guy. that he's just a wonder to watch on a regular basis. He's a powerful man with a an unbelievably hard shot and a quick release, and he's a very passionate player on the ice. He's very physical. I mean, he's kind of like a throwback to the original Six era when the best scorer on your team also was your toughest guy, your biggest guy. I mean, think back to Rocket Richard and Gordie Howe and players in that era. I mean, he's really sort of a throwback player. But I decided, well, I'll call Barry Trotz and maybe get some of his insight to sort of amplify what I had thought about Ovechkin. But when I got him on the phone, it turned out that my column was different, and really it was an interesting story because basically what he said is that when he watched Ovechkin from afar as an opposition coach, he had a perception about him, and now that he's coaching him, it's completely wrong. And essentially what Trotz was saying is that he looked like a rebellious player who was probably difficult to coach, and that was sort of the rumbling about him. But really, he's a fascinating player and just very interesting to coach. And I remember his first quote was, he doesn't fear anyone on the ice. He doesn't fear playing against any team or playing against any player. He doesn't fear being coached. He doesn't fear accountability. He doesn't fear to be asked or told to do things. In fact, he does whatever you tell him, and he does everything that anybody asks of him in the community. He's basically what he was saying is he was sort of a perfect hockey player for the NHL. And when I asked him why he thought that the perception was so wrong about him, and he said, well, there's a couple of things. One, when he was young, everything always worked out for him, and maybe he was a little cocky in the beginning, but just as any young player matures, he has as well. But then he said what was really interesting. He said, star players oftentimes, when they ask for their opinion, say what people expect them to say or what they should say. Right. And Ovechkin says exactly what he thinks. And sometimes that sort of gets him in trouble. But he basically said that he has found Ovechkin to be a joy, and that he changes the game in so many different ways as a physical force, as a an offensive catalyst. And he said he's actually a better playmaker than most people realize. But obviously, he's such a important shooter that they don't utilize him as a playmaker. But if he needed to do that, he could do that. It's just that's not the role that he has, and it's very similar to what I always say about Drew Doughty. If he played for a different coach, he'd have better offensive numbers, but that's not what Sutter wants him to do. So it turned out to be a real interesting story, and that's to me the fun aspect of journalism, where you are attempting to do one thing, and then suddenly the story sort of twists in a different direction, and then the story to me became how Barry Trotz, a highly respected coach, admits that the perception he had of Ovechkin was wrong, and now that he has him, he sees him as, essentially just a wonder to coach.
Wow, I like that, Mike.
And the interesting thing is, right now, I mean, obviously Ovechkin scored his 50th goal against Carolina a couple days ago, and if you look at the overall goal standings in the league, he's got a 10-goal lead on Nash and a 10-goal lead on Stamkos, and Stamkos has slumped over the last few games, and usually Steven Stamkos doesn't do that, but it just illustrates the wide gulf right now between the year that Ovechkin is having, and everybody thought that his offensive numbers would fall or would have an effect with Trotz bringing in a more defensive style like he had in Nashville, and if anything, the way the team has played has accentuated Ovechkin's ability to score. So I mean, it's amazing. I mean, he's definitely going to be one of the three players nominated for the Hart. I still think it's going to be Carey Price, but he's having a remarkable year.
Well, when you think about it, because Mike's right on, like he's 25% better than everybody else. No one is within 25% of his goals in total. 40 to 50. And the other thing is over 10 seasons, which is a pretty good sample size, he has scored 472 goals. That means he is averaging 47 goals per season. To put that into perspective, Sidney Crosby has only had one season in which he scored 47 or more goals. Corey Perry's had one season when he scored 47 or more goals. Rick Nash, Patrick Kane, and Jonathan Toews have no seasons in which they've scored 47 or more, and that's the number of goals that Ovechkin is averaging. He is averaging 47, goals per season. So, it's really been remarkable, and there's a lot of talk about his plus minus, but I always thought that was more of a team statistic. He had a horrible plus minus last season, but the team was horrible, and he was the player who was out against the top players on the other team last season the most for the Capitals. So, of course, his plus minus was going to be poor. But you look at it historically, he's been a plus player in his career. And over time, as you would expect for a guy that scores that many goals, and this season with the team improved, he's a plus player.
That's amazing. I do think that Ovechkin. I think a lot of it is the Russian cultural difference. The way he's perceived, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact he came in with Crosby, which is the one guy that he probably could have been overshadowed by. If he came in 5 years later or 5 years before, he would have had the NHL to himself for a little while, but he didn't. But he's been more consistent than Crosby in so many ways. And also, I think the other thing is that he hasn't won a cup. His team hasn't won, and that's a huge issue right now. That's
I think he's hockey's version of Ted Williams right now.
Yeah.
In the sense that, look at the reputation that Jonathan Toews has and Drew Doughty has, and the teams that have won cups. Even Sidney Crosby. You can criticize Sidney Crosby for the fact that they haven't won since 2009, but if his career ended tomorrow, he did win a Stanley Cup. Yeah. And Ovechkin has been portrayed, I think, and probably inaccurately as somebody who's selfish, somebody everything has to funnel through him. I don't think that's the case, but I think that George McPhee never put a team around him that was capable of making the run to a Stanley Cup final and winning a Stanley Cup. And maybe now, with the additions that they've made over the last year, they have I don't consider them a favorite in the East, but I think they're a dark horse, and I think they would be a scary opposition for anybody in the first round of the playoffs.
No, they would for sure. And my favorite Ovechkin story of all time to share with us is came during the preseason of, I'm going to say 3 or 4 years ago. He was injured in the preseason, hadn't played yet with the team. And it was one of those preseason stretches where the Capitals were playing 6 games in 7 nights, and he was seeing split squads here. And he was finally supposed to join the team and play his first preseason game on a Saturday. And it was a Friday night, and the Caps were the night before that. Were in Philly. So the Caps have been traveling around, and they've been on a road trip, and they hadn't been home. So they came right from Boston to go to Philly to play from Thursday to Friday. So they were on a Friday night. They're playing in Philly. And Ovechkin was going to, play on Saturday. So there was no reason Ovechkin would have been at the game because he wasn't traveling with the team. He wasn't moving around. And then all of a sudden, so I was at the game, and about midway through the first period, I had to go downstairs. I had left something in the media room. I went down to the media room, and I got on the elevator coming back upstairs. And in walks Alexander Ovechkin and 2 of his buddies, and and he was scratched for the game. It's a preseason game, And I said, I thought, why are you here? You haven't been traveling with the team. You're not supposed to play till tomorrow night. It's preseason. You're Alexander Ovechkin. I'm thinking to myself, this is crazy. He said he drove up with his friends. He drove up in his car. He asked his friends to come with him on an icy night. It was like an icy, crazy, rainy night. He drove from D.C. to Philly just to be around the team because he hadn't been around the team while they were on the road in the preseason, and he wanted to be around the team before the day he was actually playing the game the next night.
Wow.
That was so. This is like a star player who drove in his car in an icy and rainy night from Washington D.C. to Philly, which is never a fun ride, to just be with his team in a preseason game. That was something that you would never expect, and it's just completely, it shows a little bit about him and the way he sees the whole thing and how much he loves being around the team and how much he wants to be a part of everything. So I really like that was a lot of fun. Let's get into some of the possible playoff matchups because it's been a while since I've been talking to you guys and things are getting.
Before we head down that, I want to bring because Mike brought up the MVP and I'm actually writing about that today as well. Just that it's a bit wide open. Although I agree with Mike that I think Carey Price is the favorite. But enhanced stats. If you want to start nuclear war in the bar, you bring up those. and not everybody sees them as being all that important, but they're part of our little hockey culture now. So I thought it was interesting. I was looking at the enhanced stats in terms of the puck possession indicator, shots for your team while you're on the ice, and I'm talking about shots attempted, not shots on net, versus how many are against. And I found it interesting. Obviously, there's a lot of defensemen up there, but of all the MVP candidates, which two do you think were the only two listed among the top 25? And it's actually a little bit surprising to me, but it would be Sidney Crosby and John Tavares. Yeah. Both of those guys are ranked in the top 25 in that puck possession indicator, which is pretty remarkable when you think of all the guys. And some of the other guys are a little bit surprising, like Thomas Tatar of the Red Wings, is the number one ranked forward in the league in terms of puck possession.
Wow.
And he is a plus 314 shots in terms of number of shots attempted for his team versus shots attempted against. And Anze Kopitar is next. He's the second ranked forward, and then Patrice Bergeron, and then the much maligned Joe Thornton, who I always raise the banner. Wow. I always say, he's obviously. People who say you can't win with Joe Thornton really, in my opinion, don't know the game. I think if he was on the right team, he would win. And then Mike Ribeiro, who has re-energized his career, is next. And then Eric Stahl. Eric Stahl, among forwards, in terms of puck possession, in that statistical indicator, is sixth. And then we go to Pavel Datsyuk, which is not a surprise. He's had a good season. Now, I'm just listening to forwards here. There are some defensemen. And then the great rookie, Philip Forsberg. Everybody seems to think now that Goudreau is, moving past him. But obviously Forsberg had a big goal the other night. And when you start talking puck possession, 262 shots, the Nashville Predators have had more than shots attempted than when shots against while he was on the ice. And then the last forward, and then there's Marian Gaborik and Joe Pavelski, and then Crosby, Jeff Carter, and then John Tavares. And then this is another one, too. I think the perception is that Chris Kunitz has had a poor season this year. You hear people, well, they should trade him and everything else. But he is rated right after Tavares. Now, is Crosby carrying him, or what's happening there? Because Kunitz is listed. And then, this is the one that really struck me as funny, who is the next forward is James Neal. The guy that the Penguins got rid of is having a terrific season in terms of puck possession. And now going back up, and then we'll get to the playoff matchups. But these puck possession numbers are interesting. As one might guess, Doughty is number one, the best in the league at 300 and plus 358. Jake Muzzin is next, obviously, and then Duncan Keith. And then we go down, and there's one here named that I think will startle people, although most people who follow USA Hockey know he's a rising player, and that is Justin Falk. Anton Strawman is fourth, and then Falk, and then Nick Leddy, followed by Matthias Ekholm, who's, I think, underrated, obviously, on that Nashville defense. Chris Letang, and also, I mean, maybe this is a good indicator about puck possession because, and I have my doubts sometimes, but, we all know Chris Letang has the puck a lot. The eye test says Letang always has the puck. When I'm watching a game, he starts with the puck in his end, he carries it deep in his end. So, maybe it is interesting. So anyway.
Which means he takes more punishment, which is what's been happening.
Yeah. So, I know not everyone thinks that those are great indicators, but I thought, sometimes when I look at stats and they don't speak to me, those spoke to me. They said, this is interesting. Look at the guys that are on here. And the one thing about enhanced stats, among anything else, is it makes you think. It makes you sort of assess, all right, well, why is that like that?
Yeah.
And for that reason, I think they're interesting. And I think also, when you're trying to sort out things like who's had the MVP season, you look at that and you say, well, it sounds like Crosby and Tavares have had pretty good years in terms of making sure their team had the puck.
Well, one of the and just then we'll move on to the playoff matchups. One of the couple of the names that you mentioned, Falk and Stahl. I continue to say that Carolina has been one of the better clubs in the second half of the year. It seems under Bill Peters, they maybe they're playing the same type of style that Detroit has, because you mentioned a number of Detroit names there, but Eric Stahl, as soon as Jordan Stahl came back, that team has played much better, and they've continued to win even after they peeled off Toulouse, Gleason, and a lot of their pending UFAs. Their goaltending has played well, and the Stalls have played well. And maybe in terms of their drafting position, that hasn't suited them the best, but they have played better. And I think that they're going to be a fairly quick turnaround with a top 5 pick. And those guys, if Ron Francis decides to keep them and just build around the core that's currently there.
Yeah, I agree, and I think they're very underrated this year. I think that so far, looking at every time I get to watch Carolina in the second half of the season, and they beat teams you don't expect them to beat. They find ways to win, and they don't have a whole lot of talent. There might be a lot of Calgary in some ways, but just like they got started later. That just feels like they have a similar type feeling to Calgary, or they have some young players that are very impressive. I mean, Justin Falk is just a star. He's in my opinion a star. He really. I mean, I always remember, Kevin, when we were at the U.S. Olympic camp before Sochi, and we were in the room, but they would bring out players a couple at a time, and we would to interview. And I remember they brought out Ryan Miller, who at the time was completely. It was like the center of controversy. Will he stay a Sabre? All this stuff was completely, this was before he got traded. He was going into his final year. What was going to happen with him? And Justin Falk were brought out at the same time. So Ryan Miller had about 50 reporters around him, and you look on the other side of the room, and there's Julie Robenheimer talking to Justin Falk, just the two of them. They were the two of them. And and I remember turning to you and saying, look at these, and then you said to me, which I'll never forget. The funny thing is, Julie might be talking to the guy who actually makes the team this year, and and obviously Ryan Miller made the team as well. But Quick was the main guy, but there was Falk, who USA Hockey just is so high on, and at that point was still sort of an unknown to a degree. Now there's no question he's up there among the top guys.
Yeah, there's one thing the Hurricanes have to do. They got to buy out Semin, and that's a hard conversation for a GM to have, but it's a little easier on Ron Francis because he didn't do it. This was the Jim Rutherford signing, so I think for Francis to go to Pete Carminis, who can be a little hot-tempered as an owner. He's a passionate guy, so that's not an easy conversation to walk into your owner's office and say, I need to buy out this multi-million-dollar contract, and we're going to have to owe him. So, but I think they got to do it. I think it's it's a cliche, but it's often true that it's addition by subtraction. Mm-hmm. You need to get him out of there, and because there's always then discussion of him eating up cap space and not producing. So I think that's what you got to do.
Yeah, and if they buy him out, they'd have to cut him a check for $14 million, and the cap hit would be a little over $2 million spread over 6 years. I mean, they're not a cap ceiling team anyway, so really that's inconsequential. I mean, the money is consequential, but
right, it's the money in Carolina.
Right, exactly.
Money becomes a big deal, and because they're not a cap ceiling team, it makes them even less of a cap ceiling team. It's an issue. It becomes an issue for sure. It really puts them in a spot. Our friends over at HockeyStats.ca, and I love the site. It's a great site, and it does percentages for playoffs matchups and who could possibly meet and who could make the playoffs. And it's really phenomenal. It's something that I wish I'd thought of, or could have had the skills to be able to do mathematically. But it's incredible. They really are phenomenal with it. They've come up with 10 interesting matchups that are the most likely matchups to happen in the first round, and I wanted to go through some of them with you guys because some of them are really fascinating. At number 10, they have the Canucks versus the Kings at 48.2%. There's a 48.2% chance that the Kings are going to beat the Canucks. Now right now the Kings are still battling for for a playoff spot, but they have they've got one. They're 3 points back from Calgary, I believe, with one game in hand. But they still, the way this breaks down, that's one of them. Another one that they have on here is a 32.6% chance that the Red Wings will play the Canadiens in the first round of the playoffs, which is a really interesting thing when you think about it, because the Red Wings have been falling. The Bruins are very close to catching them. They play tonight, right?
Right.
In what's a major game for both teams. But yeah, that would be a heck of a fun matchup. Montreal, Detroit in the first round, Kevin.
Yeah, no, it would, and I think the one thing that it's probably true in both conferences, but particularly in the East, where obviously teams like Montreal and Tampa Bay and the Rangers have had excellent seasons, but I don't think there's any one team that any of the qualifiers is going, oh man, we just we got no chance against them. We don't want to get matched up. Like I think the Red Wings feel, if they can find a way to get some pucks by Carey Price, they can win that series. I don't think they're intimidated by Montreal's offense, and but that would be a great series because original six, matchup, and reminiscent of the old days when
they haven't played in the playoffs for how many years?
Oh, yeah. It's got to be
60s.
Yeah, for sure.
40 years.
Yeah,
crazy.
So it would be a great matchup. Although I think a lot of the fans in Detroit are rooting for Tampa Bay because of the Yzerman connection.
Right.
And there's some other folks that are part of that organization as well. I mean, Cooper was living in Michigan for the longest time, and a couple of the scouts, I think Steve Yzerman took over as well. So there would be a real connection. But I think that's possible because you said it before, the Red Wings are coming down. They've been sliding for a while now.
Yeah, Penguins Islanders would be is a 50.1% chance now of happening. I mean, so Penguins Islanders the first round. Penguins who lost again to the Flyers last night, as we predicted. As I predicted last week, they have now gone almost 600 days without beating the Flyers. The Penguins is a crazy stat, which is just unbelievable. Considering the Flyers have not been a really good team during that stretch, and they've been a very good team. But Penguins Islanders, we talked about that series before. And the Bruins Rangers are at 41.8%. So
I think it's safe to say, is that the East is basically fluid because with Montreal and Tampa 1 point difference between them, you've got the Islanders, the Penguins, and the Capitals all within 1 point of each other. I mean, Washington could end up with home ice advantage. Right now, they're the first wild card team, and I think that Ottawa right now is rooting for Detroit and Boston to not be a 3-point game tonight because if Boston wins, they're tied with Detroit at 93, but Ottawa would have 1 game in hand on Detroit. They could still catch Detroit, but if the 3-point game would be disastrous for Ottawa.
Yeah.
X, should Mike and I pause now to allow you to go on a rant about 3-point games, or?
No, that's okay. Although.
All right. I just want to know whether we should just stand back and
it's not as important as the Predators not having a backup goalie for the playoffs. But besides,
Kevin, I need to go get some water. Let's have Act talk about Carter Hutton.
Yeah.
I love Carter Hutton. He's a great guy. He follows me on Twitter. I do not have anything against him.
Carter Hutton follows you on Twitter, and you still lambaste him?
I'm not lambasting him at all. This is completely misunderstood. Nothing against Carter Hutton. I've explained this many times. Has nothing to do with Carter Hutton at all. I don't think it's fair to Carter Hutton to put him in this spot. That's all I'm going to say. All right, so next, let's move on.
By the way, when I do the Red and White Authority with Art Regner podcast, like we give you grief about Carter Hutton and your 3-point games, I get grief about the fact that I have predicted that in one season, Glendening is going to get 20 goals. and Art will not let me forget that because I'm standing alone on an island on that. There you go.
It's perfect.
Just one season. That's all I'm saying. Chris Draper scored 20 goals.
It happens, right? I mean, Keith Jones had 20 goals in a season. I mean, people forget that. I remember it was the biggest joking around at him, but he kept jokingly saying to people, "I'm going to score 20 goals this year," and no one would believe it. And he scored 20 goals. Part of his career, part of his rise to fame in the media was that whole season when he was just joking with media every day. I told you I'm going to score 20 goals this year. I'm going to score 20 goals this year. The Ducks and the Jets have a 52.9% chance of playing. This is a series I don't think the Ducks want anything to do with. if this happens. I think the Jets will take apart the Ducks. I really do. I think that when I look at matchups, I think the Jets match up beautifully against the Ducks in every which way. That's the one. I mean, I think the Ducks are in trouble in general, but I think the Jets really, because this is a team that's going to be so hungry. If they make the playoffs, they're going to be so thrilled to make the playoffs. Their fan base is going to be so crazy that they're there. Yeah, I think that's a
well, if we're talking about a team in trouble, and I'm sure Josh is going to mention it in the news, is we're waiting for the Bufflin suspension to come down for the cross-check on JT Miller.
Yeah.
And if it is as people are rumoring that it's going to be 2, 3, 4 games, I think they have 5 games left. I mean, it's not a foregone conclusion that Winnipeg is going to make it. And without, Bufflin has been scoring some important goals for them. If he's out for 3 or 4 games, that could cost him the playoff spot.
Right. For the Predators and Wild have a 44.8% chance of beating in the first round.
That's bad news for the Predators.
That's bad news for the Predators, and it's also probably the first time 2 teams that have been owned by the same person would meet in a playoff series. I mean, that's the other thing I think about with this, that you actually have.
Right. Yeah, although the Norris family used to own the whole league, so
right.
At one point. But what I would say is there should be a reward when you finish high in the standings and face a wild card team. There's no reward facing the Minnesota Wild. I really think the Minnesota Wild are among the handful of the best teams in the league right now.
And arguably the MVP of the Wild in the second half of the season is a guy that was picked up from Edmonton and then shipped to Montreal at the deadline for future considerations. I don't even know they got anything for Devin Dubnyk, and he was sitting in a motel in Hamilton, Ontario during the playoffs when Tokarski was playing games for the Habs. So the little bit of revenge that Dubnyk would get to play against Nashville, who didn't think much of him apparently.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I do think that in my perfect hockey world, the winner of the division would only have to win 3 games in a series, where the wild card team would have to win 4. How about that? There's your advantage. That's your advantage. It's like, okay, if you win the division, you get 3. Wild card team has to win 4. There you have it.
I think it should be more home games for the first place team, 5 and 2 rather than 4 and 3.
Yeah, I think what you should do is you should give the higher seeded team 1 extra home game, the Game 7. Oh, wait a minute, they already do that. They already have an advantage.
They already have an advantage. I know they do, and they have games. But you still. All right, the Red Wings.
I would give them even more of an advantage. I mean, I'm sorry, you've gone through the entire season and you've won first place, and all you do is get 1 extra home game. I think it should be.
In America, we accept the idea that there's what happens in the regular season. That's fun. We watch all that. In college basketball, which is a huge sport in this country, there's what happens in the conference play, and then we have the conference tournament. There's a regular season champion, and then we have a conference tournament, and then we go to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
You can't have too much of fun. So you just keep changing the. And I think the same is true in the NHL. So.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Penguins Capitals have actually a 26.4% chance of playing in the first round. That a lot has to happen for that to happen, but.
And at this moment, I would favor the Capitals in that series.
Me too. I'm with you.
But of course definitely. Of course, that's the Ovechkin Crosby series. And I last time they did play, I went to that series. I covered all those games. That was a great series when they played in the playoffs. It was a 7-game series, and they played each other. It was phenomenal. The Lightning's Red Wings is 57% chance of happening. Which is what you were talking about, Kevin. That's a good one. The Canucks Flames are at 50.3%. That's a great one, of course.
Those fan bases hate each other.
That's an absolute bloodbath of a rivalry there with those 2 teams. And of course, what it has is the most interesting is the Blues and Hawks at 53.2%. This is, the Blues are struggling a little bit now. The Blues have a lot of injuries right now too, so it's a little bit. But I still think the Blues are my wild card team to come out of the West right now. I think that if they do get Tarasenko back and healthy.
What I find interesting going down now it's a week and a half left in the schedule, Eck, is the fact that the non-playoff teams that will have effects on these playoff races. Edmonton plays Calgary. They play LA twice, I believe.
Yeah.
So how Edmonton does against the Kings and the Flames, I think they play Vancouver as well, is going to affect the race. And Toronto plays back-to-back this weekend, Boston in Boston and Ottawa on Easter Sunday night.
Yeah.
They could either knock out the Senators or set up the Senators for a chance to catch the Bruins.
Yeah, and we got to give the Bruins some props because the Bruins did do it appears the bend don't break thing. That they really they were close, and they even got past in the standings, but then they did buckle down. As we've talked before, it's one thing to catch a team, it's another thing to pass them. And Otto passed them for briefly, but the Bruins, once a team realizes their playoff lives are in danger, they do find another level. The Bruins did find that level for the time being, at least. Although tonight, both Boston and Detroit are in that battle against each other to find that level. So that's the game of the night for sure. Can't wait for that one. All right, Josh, what do you have today as far as news goes?
Yes, let's begin in Los Angeles. The LA Kings today locking up one of their prize youngsters, agreeing to terms with rookie forward Tanner Pearson on a 2-year deal. Per Sportsnet, the contract is worth $2.8 million for an average annual cap hit of $1.4 million, which is nearly double what Pearson made on his entry-level deal. But guys, I think it's a steal. $1.4 million per year. He didn't have the best year this year. He started off really hot. He was amazing in the playoffs last year when the Kings won the Cup. But yes, I think it's still a steal at $1.4 million.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been surprised if it was 2.8 per year. When I heard it was 2.8 for 2 years, I was kind of surprised by it. Kevin, you thought?
Yeah, I mean, Dean Lombardi does a great job of reminding his players, you like playing on the West Coast. It's fun here. We got a good team, but in order to make it work, everybody's got to take a little less. It costs a little bit of money to live at the beach. Right.
So,
isn't that the Ken Holland philosophy? Take a little less, win a cup.
Yeah, but it's a little easier to sell that in Southern California.
Yeah.
And the fact that he wasn't able to put up the offensive totals that he was piling up early in the season because he broke his leg. I mean, if he would have carried through the entire year, I think the number would have been higher. But I'm sure Lombardi was selling that.
Yeah, Mike's right on that. I mean, he was really it cost him that he broke his leg. But the bridge deal is, you really got to do that if you want to survive in the cap world. You got to give bridge deals.
Yeah, it's a smart deal. My wife, meanwhile, was heckling me from down below here, yelling out, "Eklund, Eklund, Eklund."
Knowing your wife, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, my lovely wife. She's giving me some help from down below. Anyway, all right, Josh, what's next?
Yes, the Boston Bruins have caught a few breaks for tonight's all-important game against the Red Wings. The Red Wings will be down the services of 3 and possibly 4 of their regular forwards, as Pavel Datsyuk, Thomas Yurko, and Eric Cole have all been ruled out of action. Riley Sheehan, who missed Tuesday's game against Ottawa with an upper body injury, will need to be medically cleared in order to rejoin the lineup. But on a bright note, the Wings will return the services of Drew Miller, who won't miss any time after suffering a scary, nasty skate cut to the face against the Senators. Miller cut for 60 stitches across the face and forehead, didn't suffer any eye damage, and believe me, guys, he's lucky because you could see that he's got a scar above his eye and below his eye. I don't know how
anybody who says hockey players aren't tough. I mean, Lord, this guy's not missing a game.
Yeah.
I mean, any of us would be like out of work for months. I mean,
when I have a hangnail, I take the day off.
It's absolutely ridiculous. Well, we're well aware of that, Josh.
Yeah. Honestly, when I saw the cut, the thing that popped into my mind, Kevin, and you'll remember this. Remember when Boreas Salming got cut at?
I do. Yeah.
Looked just like it. I mean,
no, that's right. You're right on that. I remember that, and the cut was very similar, just the way it went over at his eye and stuff. And as I recall, the stitches were pretty close to that too.
Yeah, it was 65. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
By the way, real quick, have you heard about Boreas Salming's town? Have you heard the story of Boreas Salming's town?
Kiruna, Sweden.
Right, Karuna's right. Karuna's. You know what they're doing there? You know what they're doing in Karuna, Sweden? They're moving it. They're moving the town 100 meters west. Okay, because the town's major import, and it has some very famous. So their major thing that they do there is mine. Okay, it's a mining community, and all the mining stuff that's left to mine is below the town.
Oh.
So they're paying off they're giving everybody in the town has the ability to either have a brand new house built or their exact house reconstructed piece by piece or rebuilt, but like to look exactly like their house 200 or 100 meters away, or whatever it is. It's 100. It's pretty significantly far away, including one of the most famous churches in the world. That is very historic and everything. That they're moving the entire town. They started this a couple of years ago. It's going to be done by the end of this year, and he's the only hockey player from that town.
Wouldn't you love to have been there the night they came up with that?
Yeah.
You know, they're all in a room, and a guy says, "You know, I think we got to move the whole town. We got to move the whole town." And everybody laughs and laughs and laughs, and he goes, "No, I'm serious. We're going to have to move the whole town."
After the last 3 months, can we move Buffalo to New Mexico?
I know it's simple to do, right? I mean, Karuna is like I was looking for the population. It's not population is it's well the whole population of Sweden is only 9 million people. So I mean it's not Karuna is not that big population wise. We're trying to find the actual town population, but it is crazy.
I mean, if it's over 11 people, it's a major undertaking.
So it's big. I mean, when you look at there's pictures of like the town center. It's a town. It's got main streets. It's got the whole 9 yards. Everything's going. Everything's moving out. Everything's taking place.
Does it have a Walmart? If it doesn't have a Walmart, it's not a town.
It does have a Walmart, actually. I did happen to notice that. And but the Walmart's not being moved because it's actually out of town enough. But there's this big deposit of iron or whatever it is they mine there right underneath the town, so they've got to get rid of it. But yeah, we're just going to move the town. That's awesome.
But they don't have an IKEA.
But they've got enough money to do it. I mean, it obviously makes financial sense to do it. That's just crazy. Josh, continue. Sorry, I didn't mean to get on a tangent. But.
All right, back to the LA Kings, guys. Defenseman Slava Voinov had surgery last week to repair a torn Achilles. Voinov, who is suspended by the NHL, was injured in a recreational activity. The website said...
Playing tennis, yeah.
Oh, that's what it is. Oh, okay. Well, he could be out at least 4 months, but let's be honest, he's probably not going to be playing hockey for a while.
Well, the trial was apparently delayed till July, so this is just continuing to be extended. And the Kings are in a situation. I mean, not that it's counting against the cap, but I mean, I think they want a resolution to this so they can either move on. I don't think he's ever going to play for the Kings again. I think he'll probably get moved if he gets acquitted. But I'm sure they want a resolution to this one way or the other.
I do think he'll play in the NHL again, though.
Yeah, if he gets acquitted.
Yeah.
I do too, but there was really only a need to have one of us on today because I agree with everything Mike says today.
That's good.
Yeah.
Actually, that means we don't need Mike anymore.
There's one thing I've been meaning to ask you guys, and I wasn't on trade deadline when it happened in order to ask you guys, but it has to do with Voinov. On trade deadline, I'm sure you guys remember Voinov's agent started telling people that his client was traded to the Flyers. Does anyone know exactly what happened there? Like, was he traded and then the NHL rejected it? Like, or was he just had a few too many? Or does anyone know?
Who's his agent?
No, I don't know. I didn't know that this agent had said that. I knew there were rumors.
I heard the rumor out there, but I didn't know it was
trading deadline day. I can't remember which reporter he spoke to, but it came out that there was a report that he was traded to the Philadelphia Flyers, and
his agent was having a Cowboy Bill Flett flashback.
Yeah. But everyone was up in arms, and John Shannon, who I was with that day at Sportsnet, said there's no way you could trade a player that's suspended, so there's no way that it happened. But his agent was telling people that, and then all of a sudden, about a half hour later, he said you denied it. So I don't know what happened there, but I didn't know if you guys heard anything about that.
It does make me wonder if there were discussions or something like that, or the Flyers tried to make something happen and they couldn't make it happen because I don't know. It's possible. Where the agent just could have been, really pissed off and really just throwing somebody under the bus too. That's always possible as well. It sounds like
we know Hextall's connected.
reporter under the bus story to me.
We know Hextall's connection with the Kings.
Yeah, but I think that's overblown. I really do. I think that even though he's definitely got a connection, but he's not going to hire John Stevens back. It's just all these things that people are talking about. It's not the same.
That's true.
Continue.
Another signing just came aboard here, or just broke. The Blackhawks announcing that they have signed Tanner Caro to a 2-year contract. He was a nominee for the 2015 Hobey Baker, and he played really well his collegiate hockey with Michigan Tech Huskies. So he signs a 2-year deal with Chicago.
Okay.
Very good.
What else we got here? Oh, I want to bring this up as well. I mean, this story came out at 10 o'clock last night. Usually April Fool's jokes come out earlier in the day. So I'm not sure if I'm being fooled here or not, but I'm going to tell you this anyway. So this was on Sportsnet's website last night, and this is what it said. Tampa Bay Lightning first-round playoff tickets will only be sold to Florida residents. Now, according to the team's Ticketmaster page, the arena located in Tampa, Florida, sales to this event will be restricted to residents of Florida. Residency will be based on credit card billing address. Orders by residents outside the selected area will be canceled without notice and refunds given. Tickets go on sale publicly today. Now, this is the other thing that kind of threw me for the loop. Also, fans that purchase tickets in specific areas of the arena will not be allowed to wear any logo of the opposing team.
That doesn't seem like it's possible in this country. But the first part of it is true that they are only selling to Florida, and they're not the first team to do that.
And we have breaking news.
This has happened before. Teams have done this before. But go ahead, Josh. What's breaking?
Winnipeg's Dustin Byfuglien suspended 4 games for the cross-check to Rangers' JT Miller.
Sayonara, bye-bye.
4 games suspension.
That's tough.
It's huge right now. Yeah. I mean, they've played well without Dustin this year, too. They've been...
It's probably the right call. I mean, it was a 4-gamer. But, that is a tough situation for them. Ultimately, that could cost them the playoffs.
I hope it doesn't. I really don't, because I just
we should bring up, though, I mean, they played well without him last time. I think they were 6-3 in 9 games. So.
Right. Yeah, and Myers has played well since the trade with Buffalo, and he's been taking on 25, 26 minutes a night. I mean, I'm just saying they have benefited from getting him back in the lineup after the injury. He's been scoring some goals. I mean, I'm sure if he could take it back, he would. He had a clean suspension record until this, and 4 games for a first offense is harsh, but the offense was pretty harsh as well. So.
Yeah. And Byfuglien will be back the last day of the season against the Calgary Flames, so he gets to play 1 game. They didn't give him 5. They could have, but they gave him 4, and they're going to let him play the last game of the year.
Just to get back to the Tampa thing for a second, this is not the first time this has happened. I've heard this happen. I think this has happened in other sports as well, that they've restricted to the region. At least that they start with, and then at some point they open it up to everybody. Kevin, is this true?
That sounds familiar, but I've never really paid that much attention to that. So
it is a strange thing to do, and it doesn't play well as far as your confidence in your own fan base. For sure.
Well, I know that Ottawa has tried to prevent Toronto fans from wearing Toronto gear.
That I don't think is possible. Like that to me, I've never heard that before. I've never heard you're not allowed to wear a certain kind of thing.
I know there was a restriction regarding the Senators and the Leafs. I thought it was jerseys, but I'll do some digging on it.
That's just wrong in this day and age in my mind. That's something that I can understand the idea of wanting to give your fans. Yeah, they don't do it in terms of They won't say this is to keep Canadians fans from buying tickets in Tampa or anything like that. But they'll or Red Wings fans, but they'll say this is more along the lines of we're going to give our home fans a chance to get in there first.
Yeah. Again, guys, the thing that doesn't sit well with me, and this, is this a joke? You're doing an April Fool's joke at 10 p.m. at night?
No, it's absolutely.
I don't think it's a joke. I don't think it's a joke.
Club and Lexus Lounge ticket holders, please note that all 2015 NHL playoff games at the arena, only in Tampa Bay, Only Tampa Bay Lightning team logos will be permitted in these areas. Fans wearing visiting team logos will be asked to remove them while in the Chase Club and Lexus Lounge areas.
I just don't get that.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, I really have a hard time with that one. All right, so let's do the draft lottery simulator.
I got one final one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I'm had a lot of stuff today. Guys, get your heart jokes ready. The Mercury News reports that the San Jose Sharks AHL affiliate will be known as the San Jose Barracuda. If this doesn't prompt a million Nancy Wilson and Wilson heart jokes, then you are probably too young or not into classic rock.
Very nice, Josh. Very nice. Yes, the Barracuda is, is yet another creature from this. My computer has,
important security
my computer
message.
is frozen on me and done weird things. Sorry. Okay, sorry.
Wow.
Important security message.
I can run the simulator from my phone if needed.
No, I got it. That was just crazy. I think I have some sort of virus on my thing, which is.
Oh, great.
All right, but anyway, here it's coming up now. The draft simulator is coming up right now. Here we go. And the winner is. Hold on. There we go. I got it. I'm going to show it to you all in a second. I'm doing this off of one computer. For me, but here it comes. Indeed, it's almost there. I swear.
That's what she said. Sorry.
Hold on 1 second. Now I've completely been thrown. Thanks, Josh. All right, here we go. Yeah, this is exciting. I know, it's really exciting. I have the winner, though. It is. Here it comes. And the winner is the Edmonton Oilers. And as I wrote yesterday, I think I really think that the Oilers should trade this pick. I do. I think that if they get this pick, they should trade it. I know no one agrees with me, but because I just think that they can get the third pick or the fourth pick, they can get the defense they need plus something else that they could use. And this Oilers team finally has what appears to be chemistry of some sort. And I as much as I don't think Connor McDavid is amazing, I can't imagine. I think you throw him into this, you are really literally throwing this team for yet another loop, which they just the last thing. That's
well, some of the whispers that I'd heard over the last couple weeks is that Dylan Strome has moved ahead of Hanifin into third on a lot of teams' draft lists, and that Edmonton, if they end up 3, everybody assumes they're going to take Hanifin. It's not exactly clear now whether they take Hanifin or take Strome. I mean, looking at their roster, I would think they would take the defenseman, and he's going to be a really good one. But Strome has had such a good end of the season and now in the playoffs in the OHL that they might take Strome instead.
Can we all agree that would be insane? Go ahead, Kevin.
I can't support you trading that pick if you get Connor McDavid. I guess if Buffalo was willing to give you, and they're not, but Reinhart and one of their young defensemen to move up from 2 to 1. Then I could see where you could still get Jack Eichel. Maybe, but you're just not going to have that. You just can't pass up an opportunity to get. I mean, this could be Crosby. These other young players that they've got. Like nobody ever was saying that Taylor Hall was going to be, the greatest player ever. They're saying Connor McDavid can be great. So I could, maybe 1 to 2, but not beyond that.
Yeah. At the same time, isn't there something to be said about the fact that the Oilers need to really just build chemistry, and they built it now?
Yeah, not at the expense of giving a guy that comes along every 25 years.
But if you can get Hanifin and you can get another top prospect defenseman, and add it to a team that is already very good right now and could be better.
They win the lottery, they trade Draisaitl or they trade Neutral.
Yeah, I mean, why would you just, if you're going to do that, why don't you just trade one of the younger?
Well, maybe they do, but I think that, because the reason I think you don't do that is because you can get the kind of thing you're talking about, Kevin, from Buffalo. I do believe that, because I think Buffalo is in the desperate. Buffalo needs Connor McDavid so badly, and they've been gearing towards Connor McDavid so badly. I do think you could get what you want out of them, and that is.
But I'd even hesitate on that if I was them. I mean, you got to consider that, but. these guys that come along, like, imagine if Pittsburgh had traded Mario Lemieux. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
well, I brought up the only time this has happened. Okay, the only time a generational player has been traded is what?
Gretzky.
No, at the time that before they played an NHL game.
Lindros,
exactly.
Yeah.
Lindros, the generational player, is traded, and
I didn't have to look that up.
Colorado won 2 Stanley Cups. And at the same time, you can sit there and you can argue about it, but they did win 2 Stanley Cups, and Lindros never won a Stanley Cup with Philly. So.
Okay. Hey guys, I got to run. So.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon, Gav. We're going to get out of here anyway. Thanks, guys. Great show. Remember that the Buzz is just hockey. Talk to you all soon.